What's up, everybody? Ryan from Oakland Ghosts, and today we are going to be exploring the 1010 Music's Nanobox Lemondrop granular synthesizer by building a patch from scratch. I've had this synthesizer for, well, probably at least a half a year at this point, and I've used it in a number of my songs, but I haven't really thoroughly explored it. I got a lot of my other synths around the same time, and they just kind of hogged my time before I really got to learn my way around this. Honestly, the patches are really great. I've used a ton of the patches and they sound spectacular. So I've tweaked them a bit, and I have made one or two of my own patches, but very rudimentary and very simple. So the hope is today we're going to explore it and we'll get a better understanding of how this synthesizer works and hopefully come up with a really cool patch that we can use for a song in the future. For those of you who don't know, the Nanobox is a line of micro synths, I guess you would call them. You could see, the size of my hand. I got picks here for scale. Tiny, tiny thing, but don't let the microness fool you. This thing is super powerful. It's a granular synthesizer. If you don't know what that is, I'll kind of explain it as we go. Let's just dig in. So for reference, I'm running this into the Deluge, and I'm using the Deluge as my sequencer. It does have its own keyboard where you can play stuff. It's polyphonic, so you can do chords. You can also just hold notes. So it has a very basic keyboard, but it doesn't have a sequencer, although I did figure out a trick. I should rephrase that. It has a sequencer, but it doesn't have a sequencer in that you can program notes in. It does have a sequencer you can use for modulation though, and we can use that to kind of trigger notes, I figured out. So maybe we'll explore that a little bit later too. But to get started, we're gonna go to the main menu here. We're gonna go to a new preset. So I'll just go down and I'm gonna say load. And this new preset is basically completely blank. The filters are off. The envelopes are all, high attack, short release, very quick. Let me start by saying this. So here's what we got. It's got two different granular voices. It's technically a 3-voice synth, but 2 of the voices are actually granular synthesizers. So let's go back actually. So if you click on those, here's one. And then if you use this little button here, there's a lot of menu diving on this thing because it's so tiny. If you hit this stack basically goes through these little 3 dots here. So this would go to the second sample that we could load in. And then there's also an oscillator, and it's got, your typical stuff. It's got a triangle, square, sine, and a noise, and a saw as well. So you can add, you could technically not put any samples in and just run this. So I could show you what that would sound like. So I'm just going to turn the level down on the samples real quick. Let's just turn that down. Go to the second one, turn that down. And we'll just leave the triangle on. So there you go. And there we just have a, simple triangle. So you could just use this as an extra monosynth. Well, not monosynth because it is poly, but you could use it as an extra VCO basically to just make traditional sounds. But that is not how this thing shines. Let's go back. I think for now, actually, let's turn off. We're going to turn off the oscillator. We'll go back to the first. Let's go back to the first sample. So when you load a new preset, it just takes the first sample in the list. On this particular thing, that's one called 10 o'clock, which sounds like a bell tolling to me. But I don't want that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click here. And now we can, if I click play, we can kind of go through the sample list and we can pick a sample that we want to use as the basis for our first granular synth that we're going to make. Most of these are samples that are stock on this thing. There's a ton of samples built in, but you could load your own in. You can also record directly in. You could even actually patch, and I've done this on a couple songs. I could even patch one of my modulars in. I could patch it into this and do it live, use the granular engine live. I think let's just, for simplicity, Sure, let's load that guy. The way granular synthesis works is it loads your whole sample in there. And now the way it's set up right now, if I hold it, it's just playing through that sample. It tries to match the pitch. What we're going to do is we're going to set, right now the playback is moving, and that means, as you can see, the playhead, it's going through directly through the sample. We're going to switch that to fixed. And you can see it's just vibrating. And the way that we can control that, first we can, with this, I'm going to scroll down so I can get, okay, cool. I'm going to change the play position so it starts kind of somewhere else in the sample. So what it's doing is it's grabbing a very quick sample or a grain from the sample that we made and just repeating it really, really fast. That's what's happening right now. So what we're gonna do is I'm just leaving the play position there. I'm gonna make the window bigger. And what that's gonna do, as you can see, now it's grabbing that sample from all over. It's not just sticking to that one place. Right here, I'm just going to lay down a thing and I'm just going to let it play so we can figure this out. All right. So this is making the window that it selects that sample from a little bit bigger. I think I want, let's do some other stuff too. I'm going to change this to ramp. Just the way that it samples. Okay, now this is how many samples it takes. So now it's taking less samples, which is kind of cool because now we're getting like a rhythmic thing. This is the size of the grain, so it's how, if it's smaller, it's a smaller sample that it's taken from the sample. If it's bigger, it gets bigger and bigger, right? This is kind of cool. I like this. It's like kind of rhythmic. Can almost make a beat out of this. You know what? Let's do this. I'm going to go and I'm actually going to make a kit real quick. And I'm just going to lay down a kick so we have a tempo. And the other thing I can do is I can come up here and I could beat seek it. So let's turn that on. So right now I haven't modulated anything yet. Kind of just right around there, and this is just with one sample. Remember, we can bring in 2 samples. This is kind of cool. I like this though. I'm gonna mess with the envelope a little bit. I'm just gonna give it a little velocity, and I'm gonna give it more of a release. Maybe a little bit of a more attack. That's the second one. I'm not doing anything with that. Like it. Okay, right now I have some chorus on here. I might actually turn that off a bit. Maybe around 8. So let's go back to the home page real quick. So I'm clicking on effects. There's 2 effects channels. The first one you can select from a couple things. Right now we have it on chorus, which I kind of like. The second one is I have set up as a delay. You can either do delay or reverb. I haven't turned it on yet, but this is what we're going to do. So I'm going to go in there and I'm going to mess with the delay. I think let's turn ping pong on and let's turn beat sync on. And anytime you see these little squares over here, that means you can modulate it. So I can modulate it with an LFO. I can modulate it with an envelope, a sequencer, all kinds of cool things. Actually, yeah, you know what? Let's mess with that sequencer. So, yeah, I got an idea here. Let's try something. See if we can make a little bit of a pattern on this first one. So I'm going to go up to pitch. And on this, I'm going to click over, and that's going to allow me to modulate it because I'm going to fill one of those squares. Let's set the source to sequencer. And we're going to say 100%. Boom. Okay, so it's in here. We go to the sequencer. So this is the sequencer, right? And basically, I can go in a couple steps. Let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. 2, 3, 4. So probably here. Let's try to. So right now, I think I can quantize this. Let's see if there's a way. Yeah, here we go. Let's turn quantizing on. I don't even know what key trig is. Okay, so each step length is a quarter of a note, and there's 16 steps. Sweet. All right, so let's go back here. See if we can make a little pattern. 1, 2. Hear that? So I got a little. Da, 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 da. I like it. I like it. Okay, I'm not going to add any filters just yet. Actually, you know, let's do it. Why not? Maybe do like a band pass. Turn it on. So in the filters, you got low pass, you got high pass, you got band pass, and you got notch. I think band pass sounds kind of cool. You can also even just, it's a touch screen, so you could even just do this, which is pretty rad. I'm thinking it might be cool to modulate this. Yeah, let's modulate this with an LFO. Let's say LFO 2 for now. And I don't think the LFO is doing anything yet, but oh, it is going. Let's use LFO 2. I want to do a sine wave. I think do a beat sync. Yeah. So now it's just kind of sweeping. I'm going to go back to, what was I modulating there? I was modulating the filter, so. Yeah, I think bandpass is where it's at. So now we're just getting a little sweep as that's going across there. I think we can probably make it a little less. So this is how much this is like an attenuator of how much of the LFO it's going to actually do. So let's play with the position, maybe the window. I'm gonna randomly pan it too, why not? So I think the window's probably too big. Let's kill the window a little bit. This is just giving it some variation. All right, I'm gonna go in and I'm actually gonna add some, just so we have a sense of like what the pitch is. I'm going to go in here and I'm just gonna, maybe a saw. Let's turn up the oscillator a bit. I'm gonna pitch this down a bit maybe. So obviously, 12 steps would be about an octave down. And this is just going to give us a drone in the bottom there. Let's add the second one. See if we can find a sound in here. So I'm going to go, once again, I'm going to go here. Stop it for now. Let's see if we can find a cool sound. So, once again, I'm going to hit play and I'm just going to see if I can find a cool sound. And I mean, as you can see, there's just hundreds and hundreds of samples in here. I mean, sure, let's try it. You never know what you're gonna get when you start this, so yeah, let's give it a try. I'm going to send it to a fixed position as well, because right now it's moving. Just adding some nice movement to it. Now jitter is kind of randomly. This is when it kind of goes chaos. If you do, it'll just go all over that window. I'm gonna add a little bit of that. So this is just adding like a little bit of sparkle. Going to send the volume of this to the LFO2. don't know if I want the pitch to be changed. Just going an octave down on the Deluge. This is sounding pretty cool. I wonder what other kind of... I'm gonna send this to an envelope, why not? Let's try turning the chorus up a bit. Let's try it with a flanger instead. Yeah, this is sounding pretty cool. It's cool that we're getting like a rhythm thing. It's got that kickback in. And now, since I have this in the Deluge, I can also add effects to my audio track here. So let's add a little bit of reverb. Delay. Maybe bit crush it a little. Nah. Just playing with the filter a little bit. Yeah. I mean, that sounds pretty cool. I think we've done it. So yeah, I mean, there's the Lemondrop. There you have it. It's a pretty simple, amazing little synth. Obviously, we can blend these a little bit until we're happy with where we like it. Maybe we want the rhythmic part down. And we just like this. Let's try seeing what it sounds like when we're not just playing a single note. Right now I'm just holding a single note. I'm just holding a low C. Yeah. Well, heck. There you go. There you have it, kids. There you have the 1010 Music Nanobox Lemondrop. And as you can see, you can get pretty crazy pretty quick. I mean, this is just really just goofing around and I think we got a pretty cool sound going. Thanks for joining me. I hope you learned a little bit about the Nanobox. I hope you are witness to its micro power. My plan is to build kind of patches from scratch on all my different gear and then ultimately culminate in making a song from scratch using those patches from scratch. So we'll learn about a little bit about each of the synthesizers and explore them a little bit, and then ultimately get to making a song with those sounds. If that sounds exciting, make sure to hit that subscribe. Thanks for joining me. Ryan out. Today we are going to be making a patch from scratch on the Moog DFAM. The DFAM is the drummer from another mother. It's a semi-modular synth from Moog. It's kind of billed as a percussion synthesizer, which it most certainly is. I wouldn't go so far as to call it a drum machine. It's only got 8 steps. So you could make a drum pattern on it, but you're limited by 2 voices, 2 VCOs, 3 if you want to include noise, which we often do because we make snare sounds or hi-hat sounds with it. But yeah, you're limited by voices. Some of them are dependent on both velocity and pitch, so it's a little finicky to work with, but what it does excel at is making some really crazy and interesting percussive patterns. Today, I have no idea what I'm actually going to build on it, but we're going to build from the video that we did in the last episode on the Lemondrop. The idea is that on all my different pieces of gear, we're going to make a patch from scratch, and we're going to build on the previous patch until ultimately we have patches on all the different things that work together, and then we'll build a song out of it. So each episode will focus on one piece of gear, and then ultimately that'll culminate in putting it all together on the Deluge, arranging it, doing all that fun stuff. This is episode 2 on the DFAM. So here is the pattern that we came up on the Lemondrop in the last episode. Let me just play it real quick. So it's got some cool percussive elements, a little bit of drones going on. Right now I'm just holding it on one note. I think that's probably how I'm gonna play it when we write a song around this. I'm not sure for sure, but I'm probably gonna be having that go on in the background a lot of times while we're building this pattern because I wanna see if I can get something to lay on top of it. So the first thing that we gotta do is we need to get this in sync with the Deluge. So I'm just running gate 4 out to the advanced clock. And what that's gonna do is every time it sends a pulse on quarter notes, it's gonna advance this, which is gonna keep it in sync. So we're gonna move this first over to 8. For whatever reason, you gotta start it on 8 so that the first beat is 1 here. And what I'm gonna do here is I'm just gonna wipe whatever I had on here, and we're just gonna get into kind of a default patch, I guess, an init patch. So I'm just kind of killing a lot of the stuff that was on there so that it's more kind of defaulty. And I'll try to talk through a little bit what I'm doing as I go, but you know. All right, so now if I hit play, it should sync up with this. And there'll be no sound right now because we're not doing anything, but we should see the dots moving at least. Yay! All right. First thing we're gonna play with is, I always like to play with VCO 1. If I'm doing something with a kick, which is I think what I'm gonna do, I'll let VCO 1 usually be the kick. And if I'm gonna do anything with the pitch that's not like snares, then I'll assign that to VCO 2. So for right now, all we're doing is we're gonna hear what this voice is doing. I think we want it that lower. So I'm just kind of by ear trying to tune it. Getting it close to in tune there. Not that I've figured out a key yet. Okay, so that is the pit. This one here is our first VCO. I'm using this. You could also use a squirrel wave. It's louder, obviously. But I think I'm gonna go with triangle to start, and I just have it going on the 1 right now. I'm going to try to give it a little more snap, so this is going to every time it hits the attack, the pitch is gonna change. So if I go way up, I'm probably gonna go around here. All right, so we got it on the 1. And so these are the velocity. So if by cranking it all the way over, it's gonna turn it on full every time it hits. you can hear that the velocity on each kick that I'm making right now is doing that. Cool. All right, let's add the second. This one I might allow to be affected by pitch, but I'm not going to do it yet. So let's see if we can get something pitch-wise that's kind of similar. So the envelope can either go plus or minus voltage. If you go minus, it kind of starts sounding a little underwater. So now I'm just hard syncing them. As you can hear, I mean, it just adds some really wonky texture. We already got something kind of cool here. So I'm just trying the difference. This switch will allow you to go between triangle or square wave. And as you can hear, the square wave's quite a bit louder. What I'm going to do is I'm going to see if we can get a snare sound by patching in the pitch to the noise level. This on its own right now kind of just adds almost like a lo-fi to it. just gonna kind of start patching things around and seeing what kind of weird things we can get out of this. Like, let's try velocity to the FM amount. Not much going on there. Alright, let's try to the decay. Maybe DCA decay? That's kind of cool. So it's gonna open up that decay a little more on harder velocities. It's kind of cool, but it might be a little too hardcore. Especially when we got something kind of clean and simple here. Wonder if we could send that to the VCF mod. So what this is going to do is it's basically depending on velocity, it's going to open the cutoff a little more. I really like this kind of very staccato sounding thing we got going. No, that's better. If we take, I mean, so much of this is just goofing around and seeing what we can get. So I'm taking the envelope I'm taking that voltage, and I'm gonna try to plug it into some stuff and see what we get. I mean, that's dope. Send it over here. I'm also gonna let's try using that's kind of cool, but boom. Dude, that sounded pretty killer. Yeah. So I'm pretty happy with that. Here, I'm going to mute out. So that's what we've landed on with the DFAM. So again, this isn't my main drum beat. This is kind of something that I'm going to tuck under an actual beat when I build up a beat. But as kind of a little texture piece, it's already helping me keep time. So it's going to help me and guide me when I'm doing these other pieces. I might actually just do on the Deluge. I'll probably end up doing the drum track next, because why not? Just get at least a rough drum beat going in there and make sure it works with this. And yeah, After that, we'll probably do either the Subharmonicon or the Taiga. I'm actually thinking I might go over to the Taiga and try to see if we can get a really cool bass going with that, because I haven't tried to make a bass on it. It has 3 oscillators, so it's gonna sound pretty freaking killer, I think. But yeah, here we go. So, once again, here it is with our Lemondrop, which was from episode 1. And I'm kind of liking just keeping it hang on that one note with the drones in the back and that little rhythmic part that we came up with. You know, we could always, when we're working on the song, we can always start with one. So you can start with the kick. Start bringing in this guy, the noise. Then bring these guys in, you know what I mean? They are, you know, we got 3 different voices, kinda. So, you know, there's some options for in performance and in recording where we can record different parts and we can make different things happen. But yeah, I mean, you can see how quickly you can just kind of come up with some weird stuff on the DFAM. It's a really fun companion piece. I wouldn't use it as my main drum machine, but as something for coming up with a really cool part really quick, adding a little bit of texture, adding something weird. I mean, if I really crank these guys, I can get really weird really quick, but I was going for something a little more percussive, and yeah, mission achieved. So, thanks for joining me. I hope you learned a little something about the DFAM and see how quickly you can get something cool come together by just goofing around and patching some stuff up. If this was interesting to you, consider subscribing. We're going to be building patches from scratch on all my various equipment until we can build a song out of that, like Voltron all coming together or something like that. And I think it's going to be pretty cool. I hope it'll be pretty cool. Anyway, thanks for sticking around. Ryan out. Ryan from Oakland Ghost here with another episode of Patch from Scratch. We are going to be building up a drum beat or rhythm section on the Deluge. This is kind of an episodic series, although each episode will focus on a specific piece of gear and building a patch and learning a little bit more about that specific piece of gear. So you can watch them by themselves, but the idea is that each episode will be focused on a different piece of gear and we'll build on that with the next piece, with the next piece, with the next piece, until ultimately we have enough pieces that we can make a song from all those various pieces of gear. In our first episode, we built a really weird granular synth patch on the Nanobox Lemondrop. Let me just play that for you real quick to catch you up to speed. So there you go. So there's a couple interesting drones going on underneath, and then there's also that kind of rhythmic thing on top. And I'm not necessarily set on the tempo, but this is where we're at so far. After that, we added the DFAM. Let's bring that in. So we just built kind of a percussive texture. That's not our main beat. It's just, I like to use the DFAM more to kind of add texture under textures. And then I usually use the Deluge to make my main beat, which is what we're gonna do here today. Here's what that sound, the DFAM sounds like by itself. So very simple. And I'm hoping that that's just, again, that's gonna be like an under texture that we're gonna build a beat on top of. So here's everything again. Yeah, so there we go. That's where we're at so far. Part 1 was Lemondrop, part 2 is DFAM, and this is part 3 where we're gonna build our drums. The first thing I like to do is I'm just gonna obviously make a new kit. I don't care what drum kit it is to start, because ultimately we're gonna build our own kit with our own sounds. This is just to kind of explore and see if we could find some kind of pattern that's gonna work with those other 2 things. And the way I like to do that, I mean, obviously you got your sounds, right? We got everything over here on the side. But one of the cool things that community firmware added is keyboard mode, and I love it. So basically each one of these sections is a different kit row. So here we got kick, we got snare, hat, open hat, clap, etc. You know, and then they go all the way up until however many rows you have. But what's really cool is, well, for one, there are these big sections, so it's a lot easier for big dumb fingers and people who aren't so good at finger drumming and who are especially not very good like this. It gives me a much bigger area to work with when I'm just trying to come up with an idea. But for people that want to add velocity a little more naturally, I mean, obviously these aren't velocity sensitive, but what's really cool is down here is your lowest velocity, up here's your highest velocity. So as you can see, I mean, you can think of that kind of like volume for people that don't understand what velocity is, but velocity is how hard you hit the pad basically on a velocity sensitive pad. So what's cool with that is, you know, you could get some variation. If you're good at that, but I'm not. Again, the reason I like this when I'm exploring is that they're just big pads and it's just easier than being in the corner here. I have a little more room to kind of try to build up a part. With that said, I am gonna add the tap tempo back in there just so I have a sense of the time. And yeah, I got the DFAM set up. All right, so I'm just gonna run the other two elements that we've already kind of written and see if we can come up with some kind of rough kick snare pattern, maybe a hi-hat pattern on this kit first. So let's see if we can get going with that. Yeah, you know what? That's very simple, but let's start with that. I'm gonna go ahead and track that in. So I'm gonna hit record, just resetting the DFAM. We're good. Okay, and yeah, let's record that. That's it. That's all I want. I'm gonna shut off the DFAM for now. So now I'm gonna go back to the normal song and make sure that it did 3 measures. I think our loop was only 2. That's good for a start. Let's just take a listen. So I'm just adjusting the velocity myself manually. Just a little bit of variation. You know what? I feel like this can maybe go faster. Let's try faster. Let's try it with the DFAM. I just want to hear. I think I do like it a little bit faster, but let's see what that comes out like. I just added one more kick. Yeah. All right, sweet. So now what I want to do is now I'm going to start building my own sounds because I don't want the 808. I think everything that I have so far feels very mechanical or electronic maybe. So I think I want something that sounds a little more acoustic, maybe even more like old school hip hop breakbeat or something. I don't know. I don't know exactly, but these just, an 808 I don't think complements this the way that I'd like it to. So what we're going to do is we're going to say shift kit. And basically that's just saying now we're making our own kit. So the first thing we're gonna have to pick is, and it's maintaining our sequence. So it's keeping what I've typed in there, but now I can add my own sounds to it. So I'm gonna go to my own folders, drum kits. Hell, breakbeat. Looks like we got a breakbeat kit, huh? No, it's not big enough. The kick does need to be big. Maybe we need both of those. I'm gonna start with that one. Let's hear. I kind of feel like we're gonna need two kicks maybe, but I'm gonna start with that because if we listen with at least what I have right now with the DFAM, actually that's a good thing to point out. A lot of times, you know, I'm building on each of these sections that I've done in previous episodes, but it's worth mentioning that even those happy accidents that got me happy in those first place, that might change when I come up with a new happy accident. This thing I have going on the DFAM may not make as much sense later, or, you know, maybe that the drone I have going on with the Lemondrop won't make sense anymore, and I'm fine with deleting that or modifying it and changing things so that they work in synchronicity. That's probably not even a word. I'm probably making that up. But in any case, I know that what I do have going on the DFAM right now is kind of thin. So I think I need something. That's why I was looking for a more subby and kick that's a little more organic. Let's see what that sounds like. I think that's working pretty good already. right, let's see if we can find us a decent snare. So I'm just gonna hold this, I'm gonna hit load, and I'm gonna look maybe in the same kit that I have here. I think that just sounds too clean to me. I want something that sounds a little more rim shotty and tank, like that guy. Just try that. Let's see what that sounds like. I'm probably gonna layer snares on top of each other, almost definitely. Definitely want some reverb on that. Just adding a little reverb and delay on there. That sounds kind of crazy. A little bit of delay on the kick, actually. I was really trying to do reverb, but it's kind of dope. As an accident, but it just sounds earth-shaking. Whatever, I'm gonna keep a little delay on there. Okay, I'm gonna add another snare because that's just a little too clean or a little too snapped. I want a little snap too. They got one called Snap, that's hilarious. Yeah, sure, let's try it. I'm just blending the snares to get the right sound that I'm after. And what I'm going for in this drum pattern, I think, is, like I said, I want it to be a little more acoustic since everything else is so mechanical and electronic. Now on this one, I think what I'd really like to do is I'm gonna go to the cutoff frequency and I'm gonna knock it down just a very tiny bit. And I do this sometimes with my hats as well, you'll see. I'm gonna send the frequency to random. So what that's doing is it's just making every hit a little bit different. So it's not exact, obviously it's not super obvious, but you can hear the timbre of the crack. So it sounds more like like a real drummer would do, hopefully. It's making it sound a little more human because the stick hit isn't exactly the same on every hit. I'm letting the crack one be the same. But this little high-pitched one, I'm letting it vary just a little bit with each hit, so it feels like it's a real drummer doing it. Hopefully, that's what I'm going for anyway. So let's hear this. Let's hear this all together real quick with the DFAM and see where we're at for now. I mean, that's sounding pretty dope already. So when I'm listening to it with the DFAM, I am feeling like that I might want another kick as well. So I'm also gonna double up the kick. I'm gonna go ahead and load. And I think I wanted the other one from the other kit here. I think I did the low, let's do the slam. And I'll have to vary these up again too because I don't want them all the same. So you can hear that just gives it a little more knock. All about layering shit, man. It sounds so good when you do that. Yeah, that sounded sick. All right, nice. So next, I think what we're gonna want is we're gonna want a little bit of hi-hat. So let's load up a hi-hat. I'm probably gonna want closed and hot. I like this. I don't know if it's the right one, but I'm gonna bring it in. Let's go find another hat. I think that's gonna be a good closed, and then I'm also gonna get an open hat because I know I'm gonna want it. Gotta decide which one I want. I think that's probably the one. And then the last thing I'm gonna want is probably a clap. So let's see if we can find a clap. And that'll probably be it for this, but you never know. I like to keep my stuff pretty simple because you can always build and layer stuff with other kits as well. I'm gonna do that one for now. I don't know if I like it, but who knows. All right, let's see where we're at. That took way too long. Okay, let's see. I knew that. I knew I wanted something right there. All right, let's get the DFAM going in there too so we can see if we can figure something out. Sure. Let's lay that in for now. Yeah, see? Should have just trusted myself. I like that better. Okay, the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna send these to a group that allows them to cut. So obviously if you were playing a rail hi-hat, if you're playing low, it's gonna cut off, you're changing the shape of your hi-hat. So these two need to cut each other off. They can't play at the same time. Sometimes that's fun for an effect, but just in general, that's just not how it works. So first we're gonna go to this guy and we're gonna say polyphony. We're gonna send it to a choke group. Same on this guy. Shift, polyphony. We're gonna send it to a choke group. And now this one will play until another one plays and it'll get cut off. It'll get choked. Like this. It's a subtle difference, but it's there. I'm gonna send that one to the left too. Okay. So now the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna vary the velocity on these just a little bit so they're not all even. That's a meeting. Let's bust this guy up. Second one, you always tend to go up. Some of these already are because of, yeah, the way that I did this. Since I played it on the velocity pads, they are kind of different already, which is great. Yeah, okay. Here we go. Let's try that. Yeah, okay, great. So now the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to humanize this a little bit. Usually I used to have to do this manually where I would nudge these all a little bit just so it's a little bit ahead of the beat. That's kind of how I like the hi-hats, because I mean, if you're a real drummer, unless you're a freaking amazing robot drummer, chances are you're not perfect. So it sounds a little more human if I just do it just a little bit. You can do that by twisting the tempo knob and holding that row. So it's slight. You might see it, like in here, you can see some of those moved a little bit. So now it's going to sound like this. Yeah, dude, I'm digging that. All right, and now the last thing I'm going to do, I do have velocity happening, but I'm going to do a similar thing like I did with the snare, where I'm just going to send this guy to, I'm going to adjust the frequency just a hair. I'm going to go down maybe 45, and then I'm going to say frequency random, and I'm going to do that maybe, I don't know, 8 or 9. And let's hear what that sounds like. See, that feels like a little bit too much, but again, the idea is it's making each hit on the hi-hat sound a little bit different. Yeah, and that'll just make it feel a little more human. It just makes it just that slight, like you're hitting it in a different spot on the cymbal, you know? I'm digging that. So now I'm wondering, let's do effect entire. I'm gonna turn this down just a little bit. I wonder if we could mess with this DFAM a little bit. Play with the DFAM a little bit. So I'm turning the drums down just a hair. Okay, so let me just mute the drums for a sec. I'm just playing with some... You know, since the thing we're doing on the DFAM is just kind of a texture, I'm trying to see if I can make it a little weirder. Well, I don't know. I kind of liked it. Yeah. So there you go. I mean, that's basically how I would approach drums. I think I want a better clap, but you can see how the DFAM tucks under the main beat. So this, the DFAM, the Deluge will be my main beat. Oh, that kick just knocks so hard. Love it, love it. And then we just got the DFAM kind of tucked in under as just kind of a texture to that a tick, a tick, a tick, a tick. And I'll be able to modulate that by hand when we perform it later. But that's fun for a little texture for right now, I think. Yeah, so the last thing I want to do is I just want to find a much better clap here, because this clap absolutely sucks. So let's just go to the actual, maybe there's one even just right here. Built into the Deluge, right? I mean, that would make sense. Yeah, clap. I mean, even the 808 one's better. I think the 808 one is pretty classic, pretty good. All right, let's see what that sounds like. So I suspect what I'll probably end up doing is layering some claps, because claps sound dope. When you layer them too, then it'll sound more human, like a bunch of people clapped at the same time. and then I'll pan them in different sides. So this is basically how I go about building drums. As you can see, I start with just one of the stock kits, I kind of rough out a pattern, figure it out, and then I just kind of load my own songs. I don't usually save the kits. I make the kit per song. Sometimes I have multiple kits. I wouldn't be surprised if what I might do here is resample this and then do some tweaks on that and put that as a layer underneath just to add a little more movement, make it sound a little more lifelike. But yeah, I do individual kits, and I never save them, or at least very rarely do, because they're just kind of catered to whatever song I'm doing and whatever I'm feeling in the moment right there. But yeah, there's some of my tips and tricks, things like the hi-hat, varying the pattern by using the randomize feature, panning it, adjusting the velocity so they're a little bit different, layering snares, and varying the velocity and the frequency on this one as well, so that every time it's hit, it sounds like it's getting hit by a real drummer because it's not being hit in the exact same place. And those are just some of the ways that I go about making my drums feel a little more human and a little more lifelike. Let's put it all together and listen to it with all our separate parts. And we could even do a little, we could just build it up one by one. I'll turn the volume down on the DFAM. Yeah, I think what we're going to do is I'm just going to do a quick little recap of all our individual parts, including what we built today. I hope this was informative. I hope you learned something about building up drums on the Deluge. And stay tuned for other episodes. If you enjoy this kind of patch from scratch thing where we're going to be focusing on a different piece of equipment for each thing, if you find that interesting, you like learning about other synths and learning about how you can use those to have happy mistakes and make songs, this is definitely the series for you. And each episode's going to build. From here, I'll probably go over to the Taiga and try to come up with a cool bass line and bass sound. We'll just keep going until we have enough parts that we want to build a song. That's the idea. So thanks for joining me. Consider subscribing. It would be super big helpful to us. Let's just recap everything we've done so far. So again, in part 1, we threw this Lemondrop patch together. And then in part 2, in the DFAM, we built this percussive texture. And then today, we built the drums. And that's where we're at right now. So yeah, tune in next episode when we hop over to the Taiga and we build up a bass line, and we'll just keep going until we got all the pieces we need for a song. Thanks again for joining me, guys. Until next time, Ryan out. Hello everyone, and welcome once again to Patch from Scratch, where we take a certain piece of gear and we make a patch completely from scratch. This is actually a continuing series. This is the 4th. Each episode we focus on a specific piece of gear, so you can watch them piecemeal, but the idea is that with each patch we're going to build on the previous instruments patch and make something new and add to it until we have enough pieces of stuff that we can build a song from it. Today we're going to be focusing on the Subharmonicon. Originally, I thought that we would be moving over to the Taiga to do a bass synth or a bass sound. The reason I decided against that, however, is once I make a bass sound, I'm going to probably inevitably have to sequence and create a bass line, which is going to start structuring and putting in place like a melodic structure to the song. And this is something that I forget often, the Subharmonicon can be really super fun, and by fun I say not fun, tuning to something that's already been established. It actually is at its best probably when you start with it. And there's a couple of reasons for that, because there's some weird quirks in how Moog kind of put it all together, and also just the way that the thing works. It's a little difficult. We'll get into that when we get there, but first let's just do a recap on what we've done so far. So in episode 1, and I'll post links in the corner to all these different ones, but in episode 1 we used the Lemondrop to create this kind of weird pattern, I guess. I don't know. Let's take a listen to it. Here, let me just turn off the DFAM. So it's kind of got some drones in the bottom, and then it's got a very simple kind of rhythmic thing that's on top of it. Right now, I haven't established a key. I can put, it's just one note that's holding this out, and it's just kind of droning. So I could set this to any key that I want down the road. After that, we went over to the DFAM and made kind of a weird percussive texture. And then in the last episode, we went on the Deluge and we made our own custom kit and built up a drum pattern, and that sounds like this. So, that is where we are at currently. And today we're going to focus on the Subharmonicon and try to come up with some kind of melodic part that's going to kind of guide the rest of the song. So as I was saying, I believe that the Subharmonicon works best playing to its strengths when you can explore and you can just find something interesting. A lot of people would call it a happy mistake machine. I think even more people would call it a lucky mistake machine because the tuning can be a little complicated. I think it's at its best when you use 8-step quantization. And what that means is that's similar to like in a scale when you're on your Deluge, right? In a typical scale, there's 8 notes in a full octave, whether that's a minor scale, a Dorian scale, pretty much everything except pentatonic. Unfortunately, the way that they created the Moog is that 8-step diatonic scale is completely based around C major. So it doesn't matter what note I tune this to, the notes that it's going to select are all going to be in C major. And you can get around that by plugging into VCO1 and sending it a CV. And just like, for example, I could hook it up to the Deluge. And if I wanted my scale to be F major, I could plug it in here. It's in C major. I press F over on the Deluge. Boom. Now it's in F major. Now the tricky thing comes when you're trying to do something like a minor scale, because you're going to have to get into some music theory and you're going to have to be like, oh, okay, well, what's the relative minor of F major to get, or you're gonna have to know the relative majors and minors in order to get around to creating a minor scale. And that's just for major and minor. All the other stuff gets even more music theory heavy. Now, of course, it'll work, but I think that gets a little complicated. Like if my song was in C minor, I know that's A major, but let's say I didn't, I'd have to send A major to this and then play it in kind of A major and just kind of it's having like 2 different scales that I have to kind of keep under consideration. And that just makes it kind of challenging. I mean, it's just a lot to keep your head around. Now, alternatively, there is chromatic tuning as well. So 12 steps. So you'd have all the notes in a sequence and you can plug in whatever note you want. And then you can get whatever scale you want. That's really easy. But where I think it gets a little more challenging in that is that now you're going to have at least a few sour notes no matter what in anything you do, because it's not a diatonic scale, right? So as far as exploration, it's a little more challenging because you're going to have bad notes in there and you're going to have to find them and you're going to have to tweak them. You're going to have to do that stuff. I mean, it's not necessarily hard. Use your ears, right? But it's just not as fun. It's easier when I know no matter what I tune this to, it's going to make something that's going to be probably pretty pleasing. And then on top of that, the sub oscillators, the way that they work is not to a scale either. It's a mathematical subdivision, subharmonic of the root note of whatever you choose. So you can get things like a third and a fifth, and you can get pretty close to getting something pleasing, but they're not necessarily, notes that are in whatever scale you've chosen. So if you start adding a bunch of those, you might just get a lot of extra sub notes that are hard to tune to something else that you're doing. But if you play to this thing's strengths and you start from scratch working just on the Subharmonicon to kind of establish what your key is going to be and what it's going to sound like, that's where I think it really shines. It allows you to explore quick, it allows you to have fun, and it's really just using your ear to find something that's pleasing, and then you can worry about tuning everything else to scale on your other instruments. And it's just a smoother process, and it's something I forget all the time, to be honest with you. That's why I'm going to the Subharmonicon. Let's dive in, let's get into it. The first thing we're gonna have to do is we're going to have to patch it up. So let me get a patch cable. So I'm just coming out of the trigger out of the DFAM and I'm sending that to clock because I already have the DFAM set up with clock coming from the Deluge. That's my master clock. And I think for right now, I'm actually gonna mute the drums, turn the volume off the DFAM, and just focus on trying to come up with some cool sounds on here. So let's get started. I'm just gonna get that kind of drone going in the background and I should see lights moving. Okay. So I always start with just the first VCO and just try to get a sound that I think is kind of vibing. And sure, let's start here. I'm gonna leave it on, it's kind of a sawtooth wave, a square wave, and then there's like it uses the saw wave to pulse width modulate the square wave, and it just kind of sounds fuzzy, is what that one sounds like. So we got saw, square, and the weird kind of pulse width modulated one. I think I kind of want a square to start. And I'm fine staying with C, because right now I have C, so this is already tuned to C, I'm just going to leave it at C. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this, and I'm going to try to find some subharmonics that I think, sound kind of pleasing. So I'm going to turn up the level on Subharmonic 2. I'm just looking for a sweet spot that sounds kind of nice before I move to the sequencer. There you go. That's something. Okay, cool. So now I'm going to send oscillator 1 to the sequencer. And I'm just going to hit play. Right now, all these notes are zeroed out. I have it at 2 octaves. Let's just go to 1. I think 1's going to be plenty. So right now I have this just kind of zeroed out. So I should hear that note on every dot. And now what I'm going to do, since I have it in 8-step diatonic, I know all these notes are going to be in key with each other. I'm just going to turn them around and try to find a cool pattern. Sure. I mean, that's kind of fun. And I'm not messing with any of the cutoff in or anything like that right now. I'm not trying to shape the sound just yet. I'm just trying to have a pleasing pattern. So what's being sent to the oscillator right now is VCO1. So it's this frequency. And these subs follow that one. But you can also send the subs to it too. That just sounds bad. Nice. All right, I'm happy with that. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start working with the second oscillator. So I'm going to turn all these ones off for right now, and I'm going to just have just the C. And we're going to find a nice note to complement this. Sure, sounds nice. Sure. So I'm gonna send sequencer 2. We're gonna start playing with that one next. Let's try it. Try to get them at the same time. All right, I'm gonna bring the DFAM in real quick. I'm gonna reset this, and I just want to bring the DFAM in with it and hear what we have working so far. So let's take a listen. So down here is just a mixer, and it's a volume level for all the different oscillators and sub-oscillators. So now what I want to try to do is start finding some polyrhythms that are going to play nice with this. Bringing the drums too, why not? Getting somewhere. I'm gonna turn on some Zoya just to give it some effect. Because the Moogs are always better with effects. You can see how you can kind of start mixing things in. Oh my god, I love this thing. It's just, like I said, happy accidents. That sounds pretty freaking awesome to me already. Now we got to think about patching it up a little bit. Thinking about maybe doing some weird stuff we can do with it. Sorry, bumping the camera, but I'm grabbing some cables. All right. First thing I'm going to try to do is I'm actually going to take the LFO from the Mother 32 and I'm going to plug it into the cutoff. And this is just, I'm just playing, testing some things, you know? Nope, don't like it. Alright, next, let's try. God, that sounds cool, I like it. So now what I'm doing is I'm actually using the sequence that we're making here to be a modulator for the PWM, pulse width modulation. I'm going to do the same thing with sequence 1, pulse width modulation 2. So that's with it, here's without it. I'm going to leave that there for now. Definitely want something in the cutoff, but I'm not sure what yet. So this is sequence 1, so you know each one of these steps is a voltage, so it's sending that voltage on each step to the cutoff and twisting that knob. Oh man, I might have to be manually turning the cutoff because when I just go like, I mean that sounds pretty rad. This one might be a pretty minimal patch, to be honest with you. I think it's just going to be playing it. Like what happens when I turn these down? Oh god, this just sounds so rich. I'm just trying to find the sweet spots. But I mean, rhythmically, this sounds awesome. This is how quick you can get the happy accident machine to have a happy accident. So what I'm going to do on the Mother, I think, is I'm actually going to patch let's do a couple things. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to send the clock here to the LFO rate. It's actually not doing anything. Never mind. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to send the LFO triangle to a mix, and then I'm going to send the mix out of the Mother to the cutoff. And what that's going to allow me to do is use a mix knob to kind of attenuate it a little bit. Now I'm just attenuating the LFO, how much the LFO is affecting the cutoff, using the VC mix knob and the Mother 32. So I'm just trying to find that spot. What I'm looking for is I'm looking for what I want it to sound like in the lowest point. I've got a pretty slow LFO going on here. Each one of these rhythms, if you can't tell, what it's doing is it's subdividing the tempo that's being sent by the clock and shifting it a little bit. And it's playing them in tandem. This is so weird. Let me see if I could do something kind of crazy here. No, that didn't work. Ah, it sounds so pretty, man. I really am liking it right now. Well, I mean, I think I might do some more patching, but I need to kind of experiment. Because I really think every time I start tweaking with it, I feel like I'm taking away something, and this is feeling really rich to me right now. I like this. I'll be able to play the cutoff, even though the LFO is doing it for me right now. I'll still be able to play it. And I can do. there you go. Happy Accident Machine, also known as the Subharmonicon by Moog. Pretty amazing. So let's just review everything we've done. Once again, we'll build it all up. So let me just reset. All right. So there you have it, the Happy Accident Machine, also known as the Moog Subharmonicon. As you can see, like I said, especially when you're playing to its strengths and you have it in 8-step diatonic mode, and I mean, obviously we're still doing it in C, why not? It sounds good, but it's just really easy to just twist things around, start doing stuff, and almost instantly come up with a really interesting melody. I think this is totally adding to what we've done so far. So just to recap everything we've done so far in this song, again, this is Patch from Scratch. Each episode is going to focus on a specific piece of gear, but all these episodes are tied together to ultimately build different patches on all the different equipment until we have enough stuff to make a song. The first patch that we made was, once again, on the Lemondrop, which was this guy. Then we added a percussive texture on the DFAM. Then we added some drums on the Deluge. And then finally, today, we created a magic melody on the magic mistake machine known as the Subharmonicon. So let's have a little jam, and then we'll see our way out. Thanks again for joining me, guys. Once again, it's Ryan from Oakland Goats. If you're enjoying this series, I hope you are. This is a kind of a window into my creative process. This is how I like to go about having happy accidents and building songs out of them. And we're gonna keep going until I think next we will go to the Taiga and we'll make a bass line. Then we'll probably go to the Mother 32, and then we'll start building our own synths on the Deluge. And then ultimately we're gonna arrange all those and we're gonna make it into a song. If that sounds interesting to you, consider subscribing. It helps us out a ton, and you'll be the first to see when we have new episodes. So, let me continue this jam, and I'll see you till next time. Thanks for joining me, guys. Ryan out. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Patch from Scratch. This is Ryan from Oakland Ghosts, and today we are going to be building a patch up from scratch on the Pittsburgh Modular Taiga. If you've joined us before, this series is basically I just take a piece of gear in my studio here and you can watch it standalone, but it's actually part of a broader series where each episode builds on the previous patch that we built on a different piece of gear till we have enough stuff to make a whole song, and then we're going to build a song out of it, we're going to arrange it and all that. So this is actually episode 5. We're going to try to make a bass sound today on the Pittsburgh Modular Taiga. I'm excited because this is my newest synth and I'm still kind of learning my way around it. Hopefully we'll get something really cool out of this. It's got 3 oscillators, which is super fun, and it's kind of a hybrid East Coast, West Coast synth. So there's wave folding, but there's also subtractive stuff. There's a low pass gate. I mean, there's just some really weird stuff, and I have a feeling we'll be able to get a pretty beefy bass sound. At least I hope so. That's the goal. Let's just do a quick recap of where we are so far in the series as a whole. So in the first episode, and I'll post links to all these up in the corner. In the first episode, we built a patch from scratch on the Lemondrop, and it sounded like this. So it's kind of droney, but it's got that kind of rhythmic element on top. Right now, and probably for the song, I think I'm going to just hold it on this one note because I don't know, it just sounds cool. After that, we built a kind of percussive texture on the DFAM, on the Moog DFAM, and it sounds like this. And then after that, we built some drums. We made our own custom kit, and then we programmed and sequenced some drums on the Deluge, and it sounds like this. Yes. And then lastly, in the last episode, we were on the Subharmonicon, and we just kind of built like a weird kind of polyrhythm melody, and it sounds like this. So there you go. That's where we are so far, and this is what we want to build a bass on top of. So I've got the Taiga running via MIDI over into the Deluge. And yeah, I think right now it's a very default sound. So we're only listening to oscillator 1 right now with the mixer, and that is a sine wave. So the way I usually like to work with the Taiga, and really any synth, I would have more than one oscillator, is I focus on one oscillator at a time. So we'll get the basic sound going with the one oscillator. And I'm not going to worry about filtering yet or anything too crazy with wave folding, or, you know, I'm not going to get too weird. I'm just getting the main sound. Then I'll probably try to figure out if I can come up with some kind of line that I can work with this, and I'll kind of kill some of the other synths. And then we'll just start focusing on shaping that sound by building in the other oscillators and using the filter, maybe doing some patching and seeing what we can come up with, seeing if we can get something really cool. So I know this is going to be a bass sound, so I'm going to start lower. Definitely needs to be on that. Alright, I'm just gonna record something in real quick, just so that I have something that I could listen to and play back while we're trying to knock the sound of what we want. Right now I'm just on a sine wave. Actually, let's change that. I don't like the sine wave. So this is sine. And then they call this warp sine. Or no, that one's just triangle. Not too different. This is a warped triangle, so it's kind of like a hybrid triangle saw. This is the saw. Ooh, I like that. I think I'm gonna use saw to start. Yeah, okay. So I was just writing a rough line. We'll probably transpose this down, or maybe one of the other oscillators we'll use as a sub-oscillator. I don't know yet. I'm going to just write that sequence into the Deluge so that we can just play it back, and then I can kill some of these other synths so we can just focus on this. I'll probably keep the drums and maybe, I don't know, 1 or 2 other synths, at least when we're first constructing the sound, just so we can hear the Taiga specifically. And then later down, after we're feeling pretty good about the sound, that's when I'll bring in some of the other instruments and see how it's sitting in the mix, see what kind of adjustments we want to make, what kind of modulation we want to do. Hopefully that makes sense. So, all right, I'm just going to record that sequence real quick. Here we go. Did not play that great, but it'll do. Because I can just rewrite it. Here we go. Cool. Alright, so I'm going to try transposing it down an octave. Yeah, that's already sounding better. So this right here is the wave shaper, they call it. But it's basically folding that wave, that saw wave. I mean, it almost sounds like a filter. I have the filter all the way open into resonance right now. So I'm just gonna adjust the release a little bit, see what we get. So this ADSR is controlling the gate on the signals, and the release is like crazy sensitive. Yeah, I kind of like that right there. I'm going to... This is the dynamics gate, and it's being controlled by ADSR2, but you can get some weird effects with this too. And I'm running it in low pass gate mode right now. This is how much of ADSR. This is an attenuator ADSR2. So it's how much this envelope is affecting the way the gate's opening. This ADSR is controlling the filter. So the filter is basically the cutoffs, you know, on how much they're releasing the attack. It's basically turning those knobs so it's like, you can go positive or negative voltage on that. I think if we tune one of these second oscillators low, it might be kind of tight. I'm going to bring in oscillator 2 now, and we'll start shaping this one. So that right now it's a sine. So when it's a square wave, this becomes pulse width modulation. Try tuning this guy down a little bit. I have him as a square right now. And I'm just tuning it by ear. I was just kind of trying to get the LFO in time by ear so that this is modulating in closer to in time. That sounded pretty sick already. Alright, I'm going to bring in the third oscillator now. I mean, this is dry too. This is with no effects really, right? Other than modulating. Just adding a little bit of noise, so it's just a little runner. I'm just detuning it just a little. I'm going to bring in some of the other instruments here. And I just want to hear what this all kind of sounds like together. I don't know if this bass line's it yet, but I'm just trying to get the sound and see where it sits. All right, here we go. Now I'm hard syncing oscillator 1 and 3 using oscillator 1 sine wave. Sounds interesting. Yeah. So now I just want to try seeing if we can come up with a different bass line. I don't know if I love that thing that we recorded, but it kind of served its purpose in helping us try to find a sound. Oh, that sounds massive. Ooh, sounds nice. I think I'm going to leave it at that. I think we got our bass, and that is just sounding so thick and crazy. I love it. So, yeah, there you go. There's still a lot I kind of want to do with this. I kind of want to mess with some of these oscillators. It's got a sample and hold, which is fun to mess with, so that might be cool too. So I might still patch it up, but for right now, this is feeling pretty tight. It sounds super thick and meaty, and that's exactly what you get from a great oscillator monosynth, right? So yeah, there you go. Patch from scratch on the Taiga. That's how we got a nice cool bass sound that I think adds a little something to the song we've been building over the course of these episodes. If this is interesting to you, if it's helpful to you, consider subscribing. Helps us out a ton. But yeah, I'm gonna play us out on this because this just sounds sweet. I'll catch you next time. I'll probably be hopping over to the Deluge or the Mother 32 at that point. That's it for tonight. Ryan out. Hello everyone, and welcome once again to Patch from Scratch, where we build a patch from scratch on a select piece of gear. If you've watched these before, you'll know that these are all kind of connected. I'm building patches upon other patches that I've built on other gear. Each episode focuses specifically on one piece of gear, so if you just want to skip ahead to learn a little bit more about the Mother 32, which is what we're going to be working on today, and the patch that we build, if you're joining me and you've kind of been watching this sequentially, this is episode 6. Let's just do a quick recap for those that have been following along or people that just want to know kind of where we're at and what this is all about. I'll post links in the corner, but in the first episode, we built a weird kind of granular synth patch on the Lemondrop, and I've actually changed some things since the last episode. This song's kind of moved all around, and I'll tell you what I've changed as we get there. So yeah, in the first episode, we built a granular synth on the Lemondrop. Sounds like this. And now the only thing that I've changed so far is instead of being in C, we're now in A. So I've switched the key of the song from C major to A minor, which for you music theory nerds, as you're well aware, A minor is just the relative minor of C major. So it's the same notes, but it does change the tone of the song, particularly because we're in minor and also because A is now the root note. So this is the first thing I changed, was I just moved this over to A. And that changed some of the other things we did. But in the second episode, what we did is we built a percussive pattern on the DFAM. Which sounds like that. The episode after that, episode 3, we built a patch on the Subharmonicon, and this has changed significantly. Not the patch itself. Well, actually, that's not true either. So the notes are pretty much the same because the notes in C major are the same in minor, and I was actually already kind of doing a minor thing. I did change some of the subharmonics and stuff like that to be a little different, but mostly what I did was I have a really slow attack and a really long decay. So it's making these kind of creepy chords. And the reason I changed it, I mean, when you're doing these things, you know, an idea spurns another idea, spurns another idea, spurns another idea, and I liked all the sounds and where we were, but what was kind of bugging me a little bit was when I listened to it the next day, I just didn't like it, and that was all. So I decided to change it up. After that, in episode 5, we hopped over I skipped a step. Whoa! I forgot that we made drums on the Deluge. They sound like this. Those haven't changed at all, and the tempo is still the same too. After that, in episode 5, we built a bass patch on the Taiga, and I didn't change that except for the pattern that I'm playing. It sounds like this now. So that's where we are. That's where the song is right now, and this I'm really feeling. It's a little more mysterious and creepy. I've actually already thought of bass guitar parts I want to play, maybe a little bit of guitar. But today, we're going to focus on the Mother 32. So let's hop over to that. All right. So, the Mother 32. If you don't know the Mother 32, it's by Moog. I think it was their kind of semi-modular line that they're doing now. I could be wrong. It might have been the DFAM, but I bet it was the Mother 32 because this is probably the most accessible of their semi-modular line and definitely the most wide range versatility-wise. Like it's definitely the synth that when you think of Moog, it's that sound, right? It is limited to one VCO. Unlike, like the Mini Moog or something like that. But you can get a lot of those classic sounds because it has the same filter. I'm just kind of resetting the patch here. It has the same filter. It has that classic ladder filter. So, you get those. Let's see if we can get some sounds going. Here, I'm going to turn sustain on. You can get those classic. Right. Classic Moog. So you can definitely get like all your typical good bass sounds, good lead sounds. It's great for arpeggio style lines and stuff like that, especially if you're using the internal sequencer, which I think we're going to do today. It's also the only one in these semi-modular lines that has a MIDI in built in. So that makes it a lot more versatile. I actually usually prefer to sequence on the Deluge. It's just a better sequencer, although this one is good for some things like what I want to do today. So what I'd like to do today is build kind of an arpeggio style line. The reason I want to do that, something kind of fast that's changing notes really quick, not necessarily a legit arpeggio, but that kind of style of line. And I want to do that on here because that's kind of what the Subharmonicon was doing before, but now I have that long kind of chord thing that's happening. So I think it would just be a cool addition to add that back using the Mother 32. You have two different has the keyboard. That's kind of what we're using now. You could either do triangle, square. I think I'm going to do a triangle. Yeah, and there's a couple different ways that you can get in here and enter notes. You could either do keyboard mode. So you would do, I think it's in keyboard mode now. So in keyboard mode, basically it just plays back the numbers you enter. So if I were to go, something like that, right? Now, if I run it, it's just going to... There you go. So it just plays back the notes in the order that you played them. So that's one way that you could add something. I mean, we could test that and just see what that sounds like. That's just a quick 8-step thing. But let's listen and see what it sounds like. Who knows? Man, that's kind of cool. But that's not really the way that I kind of want to do it today. What I'd like to do, what I prefer to do is I like to do it in step mode. And in step mode, that's how you know it's initialized and it's back. In step mode, what you can do is, so we're going to go shift and we're going to go step. And in step mode, let's do a 16 bar pattern. So I'm doing set end and I'm setting it to the end of that. So what that's saying is that we have 16 steps in our pattern. Now it's starting. Right? It's got 16 steps in our pattern. And the reason that I like to do that is you can add rests. So you can go to the different ones and you could, you can do some weird stuff like this. So now, and you can actually do this when you're entering notes in as well. But I just like the visual of being able to see what's going on. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to do it like that. Just trying to get it closer to the tempo of the song. Let's reset it. I'm going to listen to it with this song. Cool. So now I'm going to enter in some notes. Let's go to start on the first one. Let's do. So the way you do that, to enter the note, you hold shift and then you push the note. And now you can pick any note that you want that to be. Let's go with a high A since we're in A minor. Okay, and when you're done, you can just go back to step mode. Let's go back in. So that's our first note. And then I'll probably drop down to a low A on this one. So we'll go down an octave and we'll also do an A. Cool. All right, we'll go to the next note. I think maybe we'll do, how about we do a G? Yeah, we can have that. That's fine. Actually, let's do that. Okay. Let's keep going. And what I'm kind of doing, I'm picking notes that are in the pentatonic scale, just because there'll be less chance that we're going to get some sour notes playing with other stuff if I limit it to pentatonic. All right, let's do these ones. Sure. I mean, I'm just totally making stuff up here. I don't know if these are going to be all good together yet or what. Let's see what this sounds like. Yeah. All right, so now I'm gonna just tweak the sound a little bit. First things first, let's add some effects. So I'm just gonna add some of the Zoya. All right, so I've added some effect, I've added the Zoya. I think now I'm just gonna tweak some of the settings here. See, what's cool about this too is I can mix in some noise and make it like a hi-hat pattern. And then bring it back in. Pretty rad. All right, so the first thing I wanna do is I'm keeping the pulse width, the modulation set to frequency, and it's gonna be controlled by how much our envelope's open. Let's kill the attack just a little bit, and I just want a little bit of frequency modulation. Like if you go too much, it gets crooked, right? Out of tune. But a little teeny bit adds a little something spicy, I think. Okay, next thing I'm gonna do is kill the... Just filter it a little bit. I like this but I want this to move. So there's two ways I could do that. I could use the LFO instead of the envelope to generate how much it opens. And then this will control how much that moves based on the LFO. And what I don't like about that is it gets so quiet, and then you really gotta tweak these until you can find the middle. So I think I'm gonna keep this on EG for now. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna send the LFO triangle to mix 2, and then I'm gonna send the VC mix to the cutoff. So now I'm effectively getting both. But I can attenuate it with this so it won't get as quiet. And I just gotta find that sweet spot. So I'm still getting the control, I'm still getting the envelope opening the filter, but I can also control it with this. And it's just fine-tuning these, finding that sweet spot. You know what I'm also going to do? I'm actually going to take the sample and hold, which is based on noise from the Taiga, and I'm going to send that to the resonance. Let's see what that does. So now that's sending random voltage to this and turning this and doing more stuff. That sounds pretty good to me. So now I'm getting the LFO here controlling the cutoff a little bit based on how much I tweak here, and the VC mix. And I could go to hi-hat. And I'll be able to turn it. right now I'm just looking for that where I want the low spot in the LFO to be. I think it's probably right around there. And you know, another thing you could do is you could slowly, like, if you really want to do a build or something, you could open the decay. Or do those in combination, like this. So when I'm making these sounds, I'm always thinking of like what kind of moves I'm going to be able to make later. I mean, I'm pretty happy with that. So there you go. That quick, coming up with something on the Mother 32. I think we've added a little something that we could just spice in there all the time. I love that I could change it to hats. And then just slowly fade in. All right. Well, there you have it. A patch from scratch on the Mother 32. So, I mean, that's pretty much at this point, now that we're at episode 6, all my various outboard gear that I normally use. I do add a lot of synths on the Deluge, so I think probably the next episode we'll start focusing on building some patches from scratch and some more synths on the Deluge. I definitely want some kind of, maybe some chord hit kind of stuff, and definitely some saucy pads that kind of mirror the bass at a higher octave, just to kind of fill up that frequency range a little better. But that's what I got so far. I hope this was informative. I hope you learned a little bit. I hope you like getting a little peek into my creative process, where happy mistakes just lead to something really cool. This is where we're at right now. This is where the song is so far, and I think it's pretty nifty. Let's break it down. So thanks for joining me once again. Ryan from Oakland Ghosts. Hope you learned something. If you're enjoying this series, make sure to hit that subscribe, or at least consider it, so that you can keep up with where we get. The next step, like I said, will be making some stuff on the Deluge, and then we'll get into arranging and seeing if we could build a song out of this. Thanks again, guys. What's up, everybody? Ryan from Oakland Ghosts, and today we are importing samples into the Deluge. This is a continuation of my Patch from Scratch series. I've pretty much figured out all the instrumentation so far on this song, except I wanted to play some omnichord and some bass guitar, possibly some guitar later, I'm not sure, but I wanted to get those into the Deluge, and there's a couple reasons why, and there's a couple ways how. So I thought this would be an excellent opportunity to share some of the ways that I like to do it. So obviously the first way that we could do it is we can create an audio track, and we could just record directly into the audio track. The Deluge is a live looper. You could record, you could overdub, you could do all that kind of stuff, and that's certainly one way to do it. I don't want to do it for what I'm trying to do, particularly because I don't have a foot pedal, so using a two-handed instrument like a bass guitar makes it a little difficult to like hit the stop at the right spot. And you could set your parameter and say I want it to be this long of a loop and things like that, but it's just using an extra hand to cue when I'm playing all the way through a measure is just not easy and kind of inconvenient. And more to the point, I might play out of time a little bit, I might not get a loop that I like, and then the whole song, when I'm going into the arranging process, which will be in the next video, it's going to creatively freeze me up if anything's a bit out of time. So what I like to do is I like to actually record my core loop. Let's play my core loop for you real quick. And these are all the things that we've created in the previous videos. I'll put a link up in the corner there. This is all the stuff that we've created in the previous episodes, one by one, on the different pieces of equipment. Here we are so far. So what I like to do is I just record a nice long chunk of this core loop into my DAW. A couple minutes worth, you know. This is not my song by any means, but I just want this core loop so I know what it all sounds like. I record that into my DAW, and then what I like to do is then I'll go in and I'll play those external elements right into the DAW. So I've already played some bass, I've already played some omnichord, and now I want to get those into the Deluge so that I can arrange here, because I prefer to write and arrange everything on the Deluge. And part of the reason I prefer to do it here is because since I'm interacting with so much of my other outboard gear and my synths, and I tend to perform those live, I want to have an arrangement already figured out. And for this particular song, if I play any other instruments like guitar or bass or whatever, a lot of times I'll just do that after I've already arranged the song, and I'll do that in post. I'll do that when I am mixing the song and I'm working on it in my DAW after the fact, after if it's already been arranged and ported over there. But for this song, the melodic elements are so simple and there's not a lot going on, and I'm struggling a little bit with how I want to structure the song when I'm just jamming with it so far. You know, that Subharmonicon has a thing, it's this weird reverse chord pattern that is really cool with bringing in the different elements, because it's effectively 6 voices. So there's a lot I can do with bringing those elements in different places and things like that. And the Mother 32 one, you know, it's both a hi-hat and an arpeggio, so there's stuff I can do there. But figuring that out requires me to be a little more structured in the arrangement. It's a little bit of a back and forth. And I think because of the way that I've played bass on this song, you know, I've got one that's basically copying the synth bass on single notes, just on the downbeats, just boom, 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 you know, just doing the same chord progression. I've got a variation of that that's going to do it on quarter notes, so a lot faster, just to kind of change the tempo. And then I've got another one that's completely different from those two parts. And so I think in arranging my song, having the bass is going to dictate a lot of the way I want to kind of structure the song, and that's why I wanted to get into the Deluge. On top of that, when you bring stuff into the Deluge, because it's kind of awesome, you can use all the effects. You can use automation view, you can use, you know, delay, all those kind of things. So I can further manipulate and mangle that sample to tie it to the song here in the Deluge while I'm arranging, which is another thing I like to do. So let's start with something simple. Let's start with the omnichord. So what I've done is I've recorded those parts in my DAW. I've comped and cut out, you know, loops that are already to tempo, and I've dropped them into a subfolder on the Deluge so I can just bring them in easily. There's a couple ways that you can bring in samples. One is to an audio track. Again, you can just load an audio track up and you can dump the thing on there. So, you know, you would, and you turn it into an audio track. Then you can go in here and you could browse. You could go to your folders wherever you have it hidden, and you could just load the audio track right in there. Now, the advantage of that is when you load a sample onto an audio track, it's automatically going to sync it to whatever your tempo is. Even if it's not the tempo, which mine are, they are recorded to tempo. The advantage of that, of course, is if I change the tempo later, it's all going to sync up. It's all still going to work. And that's great. Now, in the past, the disadvantage of an audio track was a lot of the effects weren't available to you, particularly automation view. They fixed that in Beethoven, so that's not as much of an issue anymore. But one of the disadvantages in doing it this way is if you have a sample that starts off time, it's not going to work because it automatically starts the sample on the first downbeat. Enter kit tracks. So let's go in here. I'm going to delete that because I don't need it. And this is a way, you know, I started doing samples to kit tracks before they added a lot of the advantages that you can do now in audio, like the effects, like as I mentioned before. But there's some other hidden features too that are really helpful in doing it in a kit track that make more sense for this omnichord that I'm about to do, because the omnichord starts off tempo, but it has a tail that carries over into the front. And I'll show you what I mean. And I'm going to go to browse. It automatically does that when you create a new kit. And I'm going to go to my folder that I've had it in. I have it in Ryan. I have it in songs. I have a folder on here called song specific samples. And that's just when I'm creating stuff in my DAW that I want to bring in that's specific to a song and not is multi-purpose is a sample that I might use anywhere, right? This is specifically for the song. So here's where I got all the things I've done. So here's the omnichord one. So we're gonna bring that in. And the thing is, it doesn't start on the downbeat. It actually starts, man, I'm gonna have to figure it out by playing, but I feel like it starts here. So let's just say it's there. And what's great about this, as you can see, is it's going to loop back on itself. So the first time it plays, it's not going to play the tail. It's going to play on your hit, which is what I want. I don't want to hear the tail the first time that I enter this when I'm in an arranger. I want I want it to come in where it's supposed to come in, right? So it'll come in, it'll go through, and now every time it'll play the tail because it's gonna, when it loops back, it's gonna hear the tail. And from then on out, when it plays, I'll hear the tail. Now, I don't think this is right. I'm gonna have to do some adjustment for sure on this, but let's just take a listen. Yeah, first of all, I think this sample is like probably 8 bars. So let's go 8 bars. It's like a super long sample. So let's go to 8 bars because I play the full chord progression. I think it's 8. I'm not positive, but the way that you can kind of check. So I've got our sample here, so I can just go like this. And the way I check is I just go all the way to the end. And if it goes all the way end, then I know that that's how long it is, right? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go a little bit longer than the end just to double check. I'm pretty sure it's 8 bars, not 16, but you never, no, it is longer. Okay, great. So let's go 16 bars. Wasn't sure how long my chord progression was there. Let's take a look. So let's go. Sure, let's go that. And I'm also going to double check, make sure, yeah, it is on cut. That's what I want. Sure, let's do that for now. And let's see how long that goes. Right, so it's a 16 bar loop. So now that I've set the length, it's a little tricky for me because the song's fast, it's 135, but a lot of the elements are actually playing at halftime. So I'm making it feel like it's slower than that a lot of times. All right, so now that I have the length set, what we're gonna wanna do is figure out where all these things sit. So for now, I'm just gonna actually turn off some of the outboard gear because I only need to hear the bass, and we'll figure out where it's supposed to go. So it's gonna go. I think it's right there. So let's try that. Really quiet compared to everything else. So I'm gonna turn some saturation out. Yeah, it actually starts right there on the second bar. So it's gonna start like right there. Yep. So I'm just using saturation to kind of turn it up a little bit more. I could also use compression to compress this, to bump it up a little bit too if I wanted to. But it looks like I recorded these at kind of a lower audio level, which doesn't matter because I have the stems in my track that the DAW version of this it's ultimately going to become. So I can manipulate this over there and make it louder, make it softer, make it whatever it needs to be. So, this is what I was talking about and the advantage of a kit. The advantage of the kit is because this sample, I don't want that intro to play. The tail end, that's all the reverb and stuff of the end, I don't want that to play on the first time through. I only want to play that on subsequent loops. So this first time I play it, you'll hear there's nothing. Now it comes in. And now every time it loops, I'll still get that tail. With an audio track, I wouldn't have been able to do that. So that's one reason that I like to use kits. So I've got this one in here. We're cool with that. Great. I'm actually going to change the color. I like to have things kind of color coded just so I have an idea of what they are. Let's make this one, I don't know, kind of a pinkish purple. Cool. All right. The next one that I want to do now is I want to bring in the bass. Now, in this case, it would in a lot of ways make sense to use an audio track. If I only had one bass line that's going to play, one bass guitar was going to play the whole time and do the whole thing. You know, it's on the downbeat, so that's not a problem. Two of the versions are, one is it starts on the downbeat and then it starts on the downbeat with quarter notes. So an audio track would totally make sense for this. Tempo sync if I need to move it and all that. I don't think I'm going to change the tempo, so that's not really an issue. But the reason I don't want to do that is because I actually have three, technically four different bass lines that I might want to play in different spots. And I don't want to make 4 different audio tracks, because then when I go over to the arranger view, it's just going to add more and more and more and more and more tracks. And to keep the arranger view tidy, what I like to do is, much like when I'm changing synth parts, I just want a different color. You know, this is a variation of that. That's all it is. And when I'm in arranger view, all you got to do is select that, turn the knob, and you get your different colors, you get your different variations, but it's only on one track. So I won't have to manage 4 bass tracks. I'll only have 1 bass track. And I'll know that if I want this version, I make it blue. If I want this version, I make it pink, etc., etc., etc. And the way that I do that is by making a kit track. And kit tracks are great too, because even if it was off tempo, for example, you could set it to stretch. Mine are at a tempo, so it doesn't matter. All right, so here's the 1 bass line. So we're gonna load that in. So that's on this line. The next one is gonna be here. That's the one that's playing on quarter notes, right? We'll load that there. And then 3, we're gonna load this guy. This one's got 2 parts, which could actually work as 4 parts. So this one's a little bit different. But the tail end of this one, actually, it works into the 4th part. And that actually, so this one actually works similar to the omnichord, where it's gonna play off time and I want it to carry over, but I don't want it to carry over that first time that we play. So that's another reason that I wanna use a kit. But what I can effectively do now is, let's just set the tempos up. I think this one is actually only 8 bars, but let's just check just to make sure. I think I did 2, yeah. I just did a little bit of extra, a second loop of the omnichord, because it was slightly different, just to add some variation, because every time I played it, it's a little bit different. So by making a longer loop, it just doesn't sound as robotic and staccato. The bass, it doesn't matter as much. So, right, here's our first part. It's gonna be quiet too. Yeah, it's pretty quiet too. So we're gonna have to bring all the saturation up on these ones too. That's too bad, unfortunately. You know, and it just happens. All right, I'm gonna mute that one. Here's the second one, and I'm probably gonna have to up the saturation on this too. Sounds like when I recorded them, I just recorded them too quiet, or at least I printed the sample too quiet for the Deluge compared to everything else. Oh well. I actually don't mind the saturation. Kind of sounds nice on this anyway. It kind of distorts it a little bit. So what I'm doing is first of all, I'm leveling these out so that they're all the same level. That's important, because I'm doing them as I'm using shift. We don't want to do that. Okay, 6 is what I'm doing. This one is going to be the same thing. I just want to make sure that they're all the same volume and the same level, so that all that's happening when I make the variations is it's playing the different parts, right? This one might actually be lower, but we'll see. All right, 6, cool. See, I kind of like that. It's actually adding a little distortion, so the saturation doesn't bother me so much. All right, so for the third part, this one is the one that's a little bit different. So. So this is the 4th one. This one, it comes in just a little bit different at the end there. That's what I was trying to get on. I don't see how loud these all are. Looks like I got them all at 50. I want to cut that even a little shorter. So this is doing a similar thing, right? So what's happening is it starts here, but the tail goes over the next bar. And that's, again, I don't want this to play on the first time it goes through, but when you hear that, I do want it to loop through. This is also going to give me the option, I could just play just the tail. I could play these in combination, which is the way they're intended, but it gives me effectively 4 different bass tracks. Now I'm just finding that level that I want it to be at. All right, so I'm cool with those ones. Now let's listen to the other ones. These ones I like a little more dirty. And I'm just kind of mixing it. And what I like, even though these are all going to be different subtracks, I like to mix it in the bass one, or I shouldn't say the bass one, the original track. I'm going to split these off in a minute and I'll show you what I mean, but I like to mix them here now so that I know that the relative volumes are consistent with what I like in the mix. So that's the quarter note one, my second variation. Right? This is just the clean one. And this is just playing right on the downbeat. It's kind of tying with it. I kind of like it saturated. So there we go. So now that I've got all of them in my core bass line, I'm going to make the variations, right? And the way you do that is I have the other 3 versions muted. This is 1, right? So I like that one to be blue because that's my normal bass line, right? Now I'm just going to duplicate that track. I'm going to go like, I'm going to say I want it to be a variation of that. It's automatically going to turn it pink. I'm going to go into that guy, mute this one, mute that. Now that's my second track. And I'm going to go right down the line and do the same thing. So then I'm going to go to this guy, I'm going to go 3, and mute those. And those 2 in combination are my main bass line for that riff. So there's that. And then the last thing I'm going to do 1 more. And it's just going to be just that little tail end that I don't know if I want that yet, but let's see. Right now it's playing the wrong run, so let's go. So just play the tails. Maybe when I do that one, I really want this one to go as long as it's supposed to go. I'm just gonna let it naturally decay on that one if I ever play that one. I'll probably do a volume control on that and automation view later. But for now, I'm just going to let the full decay be on there. We'll figure it out. So there you have it. So now we've got all our samples in there, and just like I could do with a synth track that's just a variation, all my bass is on different things. So if I go back to the whole song, let's get it started, and we give it a play. I'm going to turn off the omnichord and the bass for now. And bring in the first bass on the next loop. Quarter notes. That simple. And so now, like I was saying, the advantage to this is when I go into, and this is probably remembering that when you're in arranger view, tracks on this row are in line with when you created them unless you've reordered them. So I know that that's my bass, right? But it's only the one track. It's only the one track instead of 4 tracks. And what I can do is I can go, okay, that's my main bass line. If I want to change it and I want that quarter note one, I just change it to pink. If I want the third variation, I turn it to yellow. And if I want the final variation, I turn it to green. Or if I want a custom variation, I turn it to white. That'll just keep my outliner a lot more tidy. It'll keep the whole thing a lot more tidy as I start getting more track heavy. Anyway, there you have it. That's how I like to go about entering samples that I play on my other instruments like bass or guitar, piano, things like that. That's how I like to get them back into the Deluge so that I can use them to arrange the song, which will be in our next video. If you found this helpful, if this was good information, if you enjoy following this journey, remembering it's sequential, I've built a patch from scratch on a different piece of gear in each episode and then built on that to get to where we are here. The final episode will be trying to put it together and starting to arrange it. If these have been entertaining, consider subscribing so you can see the latest episode. It really helps us out. And if nothing else, you get to see more cool synth content, which I post very regularly. I try to keep this all around the creative process. That's really what this all comes down to. There's tons of tutorials on all this different gear, and I'm not like that guy. I'm just showing how I like to use these things in a creative way to come up with songs. All right, let's just play out. I'll just play the song out a little bit, and we'll call it good. Thanks again for joining me, guys. This has been Ryan from Oakland Ghosts, and Ryan out. Hello, everyone. Ryan from Oakland Ghosts, and this episode is the conclusion of my Patch from Scratch series. We're not actually building a patch today. We're going to start arranging the song on the synths from Deluge. If you've been with me from the beginning of this series, basically in each episode, we've built a patch from scratch on a different piece of my gear, including drums on the Deluge. We've imported some samples. I played bass and omnichord, and we've basically got all the loops that we need and all the sections we need to construct a song. So I've been asked many times, how do I arrange? Because that's where the magic happens, or at least some of the magic, I guess. That's a really hard video to make. I'm going to be honest with you. I feel like that almost needs to be a live stream. But one question I did get recently was how I arrange between the Deluge and the analog gear. And I think I can show a little bit of that because that has changed since I used to only exclusively work on the Deluge. When I arrange on the Deluge, I mean, you got all your tracks. It's basically, to me anyway, very similar to how I would arrange in a DAW. I figure out my song, I've got all my parts, I just figure out where they go. Then I'll print some effects, like if I have a filter sweep or a ramp or something. That's something I'll do after I've done the arrangement. But once I started introducing analog gear, some of that changed in ways that I didn't quite expect. One of the things that I learned is that, you know, when I got the Moogs and I got the Sound Studio, they have sequencers, or I sequence here, but these are very performance-based instruments. Riding the knobs, riding the cutoff, riding decays, you know, turning knobs as you go. There's a performance to it, particularly with the Subharmonicon, which is 6 voices. You know, there's a lot you can do by not playing all the voices at the same time if your song calls for it. So when I noticed that these became a performance-based kind of thing, the way that I arranged changed a lot. Why don't we first start by recapping just really quick. I'll just play the core loop of everything we have, and then I'll talk about what I mean. All right, let's just play what we got here. So that's the main beef of the song that we've created over the course of these episodes. The way that I had to learn to arrange is there's a lot of interplay between how long I need something to happen versus how much I needed to be able to turn knobs and things like that. I physically need time to do those things. So the way I have to arrange is a little different than I would normally do. And there's a lot of back and forth. Like for this one, I know that it sounds really cool when I start with just the sub bass oscillator right here. I think when I bring that in slowly on top of the Nanobox, those parts sound really cool. And I don't know how long it's going to take for me to kind of bring enough of the chord element in before I get to another part that I want to introduce, like maybe an arpeggio, maybe something I got here on this or the bass line, whatever. The first thing I do anytime I go in the arranger view is I line up all the tracks in an order that kind of makes sense to me. I'm going to be spending a lot of time with that. That's the Lemondrop. And then I've got drums, different stuff. This is a DFAM. I actually recorded the DFAM into here so that I could write another part on the DFAM. So I have 2 parts going on the DFAM now. That's going to be the bass. And when I do the bass, you know, we did add an acoustic bass. So I want that to be close to the bass. Other than that, I think the order of things is fine. A couple of bell synths I have. Oh, we know. And that's the omnichord. Okay. I need to reset this real quick because that's a stupid thing. Let's go back to this pattern. Yep. Groovy. All right. So I've got the different parts I want. So, as I was saying, let's get started. First, I know I want to bring these parts in, and I want this to not have the percussive part. So, the top of my stack here, that's this. And I don't know how long I want this to go, but I suspect pretty long. So I'm going to try that long to start. I don't want the percussive element in, so I'm going to turn the level in, and that's something I'm going to bring in later. I just want the kind of drone that I have on here, as well as I'm slowly going to bring in something on the Subharmonicon, and I need some time to do that. So I'm going to practice it real quick. Make sure everything's reset. Reset. Looks good. All right. Probably right there, I want something else to come in. So probably about halfway, I'm going to want something else to come in, another element. Maybe. That's the DFAM. Let's just try that and see. So this is what I mean. When I'm arranging, it's a lot of figuring it out because I'm going to be performing this, and I don't know how long it's going to take to get the performance I want before I want other elements to come in. So I'll run a thing and I'll be like, okay, about right there, that's where I want something to change. Things like that help me to figure out the interplay between these two devices. Let's do definitely still much longer, but I'm going to keep the DFAM thing going. I like where it came in. Let's keep it going. So this is double as long as it was before. I felt like right after that first introduction, maybe I want something here. Like, I don't want the main drums to come in for a while. I know that. This is bass. I don't want bass yet. It's live bass. Maybe one of these. Need to play with this. I don't know what it is over here, so I need to listen to it. So to do that, you can go wherever the playhead is just where the start is. If you push this down and push play, it'll start in that spot. I'm going to turn off the other instruments. Okay, that's pretty dope. I'm going to add the bass tail right, and then I'm going to drop into something here. Probably the synth bass will come in about right there. Let's try that. All right, so I've added some more elements, and I'm going to see where we're at when we get there. I think that's going to be too early for some stuff, but we'll see. I definitely don't want the live bass to come in that early. What is the pink one? Let's hear. So that's just a overhit. I got it. Okay, good. So I still want that in there. Sure. I don't know. Like I said, it's a lot of back and forth, so I'm figuring out where I want to start bringing different elements in. That's what I'm slowly doing here. Mostly between these two. I'm also slowly bringing this one up because it's got a hat sound, and this has kind of a funky sound on it too. All right, let's make sure everything's in the right spot. Set. Okay, here we go again. Let's give it a try. I think I don't need those in here yet. I think we bring the hi-hat in there from here. So this little drum thing, the old DFAM thing, we'll have that actually start when the bass starts. I'm going to turn the volume up just a little bit on that. Bass is fine. Yeah. That'll give me a chance to fade anything. I think after this part, we'll probably cut something for a second. We'll cut like a couple elements, and then the drums will drop like here. Boom, cut, boom, cut. I think that's the way to go. See if we can get that far. Kill the DFAM ones. Keep that going. Probably bring in normal bass. I feel like I'm gonna want to cut stuff, like maybe the last one. Something like that. I don't know. See where we're at. I think this is probably about as far as we're gonna get on this tonight. I'm just showing basically the intro. How do I get to that key part? I think we're getting pretty close. This might even be too short. I might want to even drag some of this stuff out even longer. Okay, let's give it another try. Oh, we're getting there. I'm gonna do one more. I don't think I had these guys lined up just right because it sounded off. Always got to make sure you reset everything. They don't have run stops, which kind of sucks. Or resets, I should say. Okay, I want that to start as hats. That guy felt off to me. So I have a whole nother chord progression on these that I'll use later, and I could cut the decay and the attack on these and make it more staccato so that it's like more like an arpeggio almost instead of chords. There's lots of weird things I can do to really expand the parts that I have just on the Subharmonicon. But I'm trying to figure this intro out right now. Let's try one more time. All right. Yeah. So that's a short glimpse in how I kind of arrange stuff, especially working back and forth between these two instruments. It's all about finding how long you need it to be. I think I could stretch this intro actually out quite a bit longer and really work with the elements a little bit. But this is, as an example, I think you're seeing what I'm doing. I'm slowly adding elements. I'm finding places. And then once I get to the main core of the song, that's where you're going to groove for a while. I might add some guitar. I might drop the omnichord in. After we've introduced all the parts, it's like we've introduced all the characters in the show. And now it's time to like have the body of the play, right? Before we figure out how we end it. But yeah, there you go. That's pretty much how I do it. I hope you've been enjoying this series. The very last thing I'll do is I'll put the full song after I figure this song out. I still got a lot of work to do, but I hope you've enjoyed kind of having just a glimpse into my creative process and how I go from one thing to the next thing to the next thing until I have all the parts I need to make a song. Thanks for sticking with me. I hope this was enjoyable. If it was, please consider subscribing if you found this valuable. If you like learning about the creative process, I post a lot of that content, and my bandmates have some very good content coming shortly as well. All right. I'm going to play one more time just so we could recap, and I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks, guys.